Hey everyone, it's your host Dan once again, and about a month ago I did a review video on this Husky toolbox here I purchased. I really like it. I like everything about it, the colors, the soft close drawers. One thing I kind of don't like is the way this top blends into this ugly paneling, then blends into the curtains. For today's project, I'm going to make something that takes care of that and makes that look a whole lot nicer. Here's a shot from a little further out. This is the before. My ugly brown paneling I got. Now, I know I could go ahead and replace all this paneling, but this is a garage, and I'd have to pull this cabinet, that cabinet, my workbench here, which is nailed into the wall, which would pretty much destroy it if I tried taking it apart. I'm just going to concentrate on this area here, because when you walk up, your eye focuses to this ugly paneling, and we're going to make it look pretty. And another concern is that the edge of my stainless steel top does not meet the wall perfectly, so I want to create something that butts up against the edge of the stainless steel top. This way nothing can roll over the edge and behind the toolbox, because I really don't want to have to move this thing to get something. So I'm going to make somewhat of a semi-crude frame for this. I went to the store and I bought a couple 8-foot 2x2s, which I just made a couple quick cuts, and these are now 72 inches long, just as long as the toolbox is. I got some double-sided tape, and I'm going to run this along the bottom of one of these, and you'll see why in just a second, why I'm doing this. Okay, now the box has a little bit of an edge to it, kind of like a lip that sits down about a 1/4 of an inch out from the stainless steel top, and it's like that on the back. That's why I'm using the tape. So when I place this board behind there, it's just going to hover maybe about a 1/16 of an inch above. This way, when I go to slide the box in place, it's not going to get stuck on this board. I'm just going to put up underneath my windowsill, and then we'll use the cutoffs for the uprights for the left and the right. I ordered a piece of aluminum diamond plate online. This piece here is 72 inches long by 18 inches high, and I also got it in a different color other than the bright shiny chrome whatever color that normally you'd see diamond plate in. I got it in gunmetal. It's kind of cool that I could get this in the size pretty much I wanted without having to get a huge 4x8 sheet and then having to cut it down. And also too, by the way, this is roughly about 1/16 of an inch thickness, so this is cosmetic grade diamond plate. This isn't like something like truck accessories would be made out of. So I need to pre-drill a few holes for the frame. I know there's a stud right here because the paneling meets up. So this will be where I put one of the screws here that's going to hold this to the wall. It's just easy enough with the boards doubled on top of each other. Makes half the work. And then from here, I'll just measure out 16 inches. And that should be our next hole right there. Right about there. Yep, I can feel it. There's a stud there. So my next step's going to be to get these end pieces cut to the proper height so it just fits in here like a box. So got the little shorties cut on both sides. I think as far as screwing this to the wall, I'm just going to use 4 anchor points on the bottom and 4 across the top. I was going to think of maybe putting a screw here on the end, but that's not going to hit a stud because it's a little wider than the window, and I might not even do screws in here at all if it doesn't need it, because there's no stud there, and all that's going to do is just pull the paneling back to it. I'll put that on if it needs it at the end, but I think 8 3-inch drywall screws should be more than adequate to hold this panel on. So when I pre-drill, I want to make sure the hole's big enough where the screw doesn't catch on these and basically catches in the wall. So I'm going to use my drill index, real nice handy tool, figure out what size I need for that. 5/32 won't fit through. It's an 11/64 I can get the screw through, so I got to get an 11/64 bit for the pilot holes into the boards. Alright, so next I'm going to do the countersink. As mentioned, the pilot holes I drilled were 11/64. So I like to go 2 sizes smaller than that for the pilot hole into the piece of wood because I don't want this to split. So I'm just going to add a little glue here to the end. I think just the 3-inch drywall screw, one on the top, one on the bottom, on all 4 corners. That should be strong enough to hold us together. And it'll be glued too, so that way we'll have a lot more strength. Okay, I'm just going to check it for square real quick. Sometimes it drifts a little bit when you put the screws in. That's pretty good. That might be off by maybe 1 degree. You can see it's a little wobbly. It should be flat on the bench, but this is the limitations of buying wood at big box stores. I had to go through so many pieces just to find these 2 that were acceptable. But once I screw it on the wall, any kind of warpage down it will get sucked against the wall. Okay, now that I got the sides screwed and glued, let's put it back in place real quick. I'm going to drill some centering holes so when I put it on for the final time it has somewhere to line up to. These holes down here, I'll obviously got to move the box because I can't get the drill in at that angle. Now I could just go ahead and pull her on back out again because those screws will center it. I don't need the tape anymore because the tape was that temporary spacer giving me just, you know, like a 32nd of an inch. It looks like it got flattened down a little bit, but that's why I just did those centering holes on top. So now I can take off the tape for the full length because now I'm going to prime it before I paint it. Got my primer out. This is Glidden gripper. I used this about 2 years ago. I struggled for 5 minutes to get the lid off of this stuff. This stuff really grips. I use it on my front windows and it's turned out excellent as far as a primer. So I had this left over so I don't have to go out and buy any. I am out of paint pan trays, so I'm just going to use a paper plate. Pour a little paint out, and I've even got a dirty roller here too. So I don't want to spend any money on a roller. So I'm cheap. Okay. Need just a little. Start rolling. Of course, if I need more on my plate, I'll just pour a little more. Easy peasy. But one thing I learned is when you're painting, even at something like this, if I use a brush, the brush will leave marks even with primer when you go to put your top coat on. So this is why I am going to roll out everything with a coat primer. This way it will help, you know, in case if it gets bumped or scratched, it will go right down to the bare wood. And since this is right below a window, just in case any moisture gets through anywhere, it gives it an extra layer of protection. So the frame now has a coat of primer on it. I just got to go out and get some black paint. I kind of like this step because it didn't cost me a thing. I used primer I had on hand. I used an old roller. I improvised and just used a paper plate for a paint pan tray. And I didn't even use a drop cloth. I just used garbage bags, which are just going to wind up in the garbage anyways. So my next step is I got to get the diamond plate behind it because I want to pre-drill some holes through that too as well, so the screws don't snag on that when they go into the studs. So I went out and got some black paint, and now it's time to give it a coat of the black paint. I'll probably wind up doing it twice because we're going from white to black. Now that the frame is fully painted, all I gotta do is get over there and screw it up on the wall. I'm just going to take some of the old paint and a Q-tip, dip that in there, and touch up some of the screw holes where the screws went in. That way everything is all the same color. Alright, another project complete. I'll switch to the before for just a second. And this is the after. Kind of like the way this turned out. Did the black around the trim to mimic the black on the box. Now when you walk up, your eye doesn't focus on just that ugly brown paneling. It looks really nice running down the whole length of the toolbox. Here's a shot from the front. All in, this took me about 4 or 5 hours to build and construct. It's a pretty simple beginner DIY project that most anybody should be able to pull off. Spent around $100 in the raw materials for it, but I think it looks a whole lot nicer around the toolbox, jazzes up the garage. So I'd like to know what you think. Feel free to drop me a comment down below, and as always, thanks for watching.